Go ahead and call us to order. I'll stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marty, if you would take roll call, please.
Mary Jo Rothmanowski.
Here.
Mary Jo Radcliffe. Here. Tom Epps. Troy Webb. Nick Helsted.
Here.
Ann Deemer.
Here.
And Brad Dobbs.
Here. All right. And has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
I'm going to make one note for everyone. The agendas, under the advice of one of the WEASB attorneys, we're no longer going to list action after items. It's just best practice that they have recommended. The board is allowed to discuss and or take action on anything on the agenda, and that's just what they're recommending to districts now. So we will no longer see the action item. Obviously, Shelley knows the ones that will need action. Things like monthly expenditures obviously need action every month, but that won't be listed. So, questions on that? All right. We have, do we have guests?
We do. Evelyn's in the back.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and move forward items, or I'm going to move that we move forward items 7.1 and 6.1 because of our guest speakers.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's open with 7.1.
Excellent. Evelyn, if you would mind using the microphone up front. It doesn't amplify your voice in here, but it carries stronger to the recording. And welcome.
Ahoo! Очень рада, очень гайгари. Онаga, майхатера Avalon Falcon gaigaри. I was asked to come out here and actually got some notes that I was going to tell you all about what Wangshik has been doing and what we plan to do for the remainder of the school year. So far, some of the things that we've done is we've had our own float in the homecoming parade, and we had the drum group that I actually am like the main, I kind of run it a little bit. We had us doing the flag songs and just showing off just our culture, you know, through the homecoming parade. And before the homecoming game this year, we had that same drum group, we performed the flag song. That's kind of like the national anthem sort of thing. And so after we did those things, we wanted to keep going with it. And for the flag raising for all the schools, we went through each and every one of them and did all of that. And for Veterans Day Assembly, we wanted to perform the flag song and also the retreat song out of respect for all of the veterans. And just a little bit ago, we had our dress up week for the Native American History Month. And so we had like Monday was to wear red for MMIW, and Tuesday was like the Rock Your Mocks Day, and Wednesday was Waje and Monaji Wednesday, which is like a ribbon dress, and kind of like the guys wore like a shirt and it has ribbons on it. It's called ribbon shirt. And Monaji just means shirt. It just sounds better with Wednesday than shirt. And then Thursday was trying to remember it off the top of my head. I'm kind of nervous, but I know for sure Friday was orange to remember the survivors of the boarding schools. And after the dress up week, we had actually Rita come in and make moccasins with some of the students. And Wangshik isn't only open to Native American students, it's open to everybody. So we want to include everybody. So if it was moccasin for anybody, whoever wanted to be. I reached out to some of my friends who weren't Ho-Chunk or Native American and asked them to be in the drum group. So we're reaching out and trying to make connections. I've even asked the principal of the school to come sing with us sometimes, and he's wanting to come and practice with us. So that's a way I've been trying to implement more students into the club instead of just Native American students. And to keep on going through the school year, actually coming up on Wednesday, we want to have a moccasin tournament, which is a game that the Ho-Chunk people have played for a long time, and it's kind of like how would you say it? Where you have your moccasins and you hide something under it, and it's kind of like a guessing game, where one team guesses and the other team tries to hide it from them, and you have a person singing while you play it, and it's just supposed to be fun, you know, and we want to have that and share it with the school, and so we have we're trying to get students to sign up for that and make their own teams. For Project Christmas, we want to help with like wrapping gifts and maybe delivering some of the baskets to different houses. And coming on later on in the winter, we want to have a Waikon night, which is like stories, and you get usually someone older to come and tell them. And there has to be like snow on the ground and stuff like that. And later on in the year, after it's already 2023, we want to have, for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Day, we want to have like a function at the school and kind of raise awareness and get some artists to come and do stuff, and have the school prepare different shadow boxes with different things that are meaningful inside of them to display, and actually display them in the school going forward. And we're also going to have the drum group perform the MMIW song there too. And that's kind of that's what I got so far. So thank you all for listening to me. Can
you answer some questions?
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you know of any other groups in other schools or even other states that have something similar to this? Because this is really wonderful.
Me personally, I haven't heard of any myself so far. So I couldn't really answer that, but I'd definitely be interested in looking at it.
Well, thank you so much.
And I really like how you're reaching out to include non-Ho-Chunk students also. It sounds like you really have a good program going. And do you have a lot of participation right now?
We actually, when we were trying to recruit new people for the club at the beginning of the year at the club fair, we actually got the most signatures out of all the clubs.
Nice.
So it felt really good that day when I could see people really being interested. And it wasn't just Ho-Chunk kids signing up, it was
Nice.
non-Ho-Chunks too.
That's awesome. I was so incredibly proud during the flag raising, because we've been doing those in our district for many, many, many years, and I couldn't see up front from where I was standing, and when they said that it was a completely student-led group, that was absolutely amazing. The amount of pride that you must have felt, like going to all the schools, and the students were super respectful and just really, really appreciated that experience. So I love that leadership. I'm so appreciative of your willingness to do that.
Thank you.
Do you feel like it is, and do you feel like all these efforts are increasing a sense of pride in being a part of the school culture, because it is now not choosing between being Ho-Chunk and being part of the school, but it feels a little bit more immersed together? Do you feel like there's some attitudinal changes, or no?
Personally, I feel more included in the school, and with everything being kind of meshed together like that, you know, it feels really good, you know, it makes me proud, it makes me happy.
You should be.
Thank you.
Thanks for your leadership. You're good. Thanks for coming tonight too.
Thank you all for listening.
You're welcome to go, or you're welcome to stay. The choice is yours. It's okay. It's okay. It's a Monday night. It's been a long day. It is your choice.
I'm sorry.
You could.
You know what, Evelyn? All those people over there are saying, "I wish you would give me that choice."
But you won't know what you're gonna miss though.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have our 6th-8 science presentation.
All right. Shake it out. I talked to 12 and 13-year-olds all day. I'm a little more nervous for this now. I'm Zach Clemens. This is my second year as a 7th grade science teacher here. It's my first year as PLC leader and my first year as technology coach. So I want to keep this kind of short and sweet for you all, let you know kind of what we're doing in the science department at the middle school. So with the switch to standards-based grading, we kind of went back and forth on what we wanted to use to actually assess students. So science is kind of weird, kind of different than the other ones in the fact that we have science and engineering practices. We have NGSS standards that are provided by the state. Those are more like content orientated, so things that we should teach. And then there's cross-cutting concepts or ideas that kind of transfer from 6th grade all the way up to 8th grade and can apply to different content areas. We settled on science and engineering practices. We were confident that if a student moving forward didn't choose a field in science, that these 8 skills in front of you were all skills that would be useful and helpful for students in any discipline they chose going forward. So some of the ones on there, asking questions, defining problems. Big ones are engaging in argument from evidence, analyzing and interpreting data. Those were kind of the big ones. I know today we went over what the forward test looks like for the state. And these standards are covered a lot more than the rest, in that these practices can be applied to basically any content or any question or any topic. I can go to the next one. So right now, as our PLC team, we are working first to develop assessments that we can use to allow students to show their learning in any modality. So if they're a good writer, we have options for that. If they would prefer to talk to you, I know a lot of us have been working on verbal assessments, presentations, pretty much giving them choices to show their learning. I know compared to last year when I personally did not do verbal, I've gotten a lot more students who are able to show their knowledge. And I think they should be rewarded for that in a way, or not even rewarded, acknowledged that they do know the stuff and that they can do it in a modality that suits them best. So along with those assessments are rubrics that we can use to clearly communicate what we are trying to see from them in terms of learning, and then how we are going to fairly assess students the same, even when we are still using different modalities. And then from those 2 first ones, I guess the third one kind of comes in that we want to be able to plan our assessments based on our standards, make sure we're meeting the depth of knowledge that those standards provide, and then using our lessons to kind of scaffold up to that. And then a big one right now is training. I know this is my 2nd year. Our 8th grade teacher, it's her 1st year. Our 6th grade teachers are the first team of 3, I don't know how long. There's 3 different 6th grade teachers teaching science. Right now they're kind of scrambling to learn the curriculum and get equal lessons across each of the 3 classes, so they know they're covering the same stuff, that they're assessing the same. So the current work, I don't know if you can click on those 2, the example assessment. This is one from my classroom. Ooh. Thought I had it to make a copy. Yeah, I must have forgot that first one.
That's right, tell us what it would say.
So the first one was one that I used to assess students' ability to write an explanation for science. So it was when we had just finished our metabolism unit and they were asked to pick a medical condition that they thought they understood best. We went through a process of gathering reliable sources online. So we focus a lot on scientific journals as a truly, hopefully most of the time they're the most unbiased source of material that you can get for science. It's really teaching them how to avoid confirmation bias and find reliable stuff online. And then that was just a test we used to see their ability to communicate that to us. So that one did focus on writing. I did do a couple verbal with students too who wanted to do that. And then the rubrics, myself and the 8th grade teacher worked pretty hard on these. So we were trying to figure out ways to keep the SEP skills that we are looking for to be able to have them transfer over from 6th, 7th, all the way up to 8th and have them build off each other. So if you scroll down a little bit, I'm sorry, are you guys familiar with the 1 through 4 scale? 4 is
Minimally,
proficient,
yes. Yeah.
1's down to standard not met. So if you go down a little bit, we started to break these specific SEPs into areas that we thought if a student mastered all 4 of these, for example, for this first one, then they would have shown mastery of the skill of asking questions for science. I know after today's conversation in the meeting we had, we were going to start sorting through these to see which ones we want to focus on in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, so we can build off and expect more from our 8th grade students as they've shown mastery going forward. So it goes all the way down to 8. I don't know if you want to show them all, but it was a lot of work. We adapted a lot of them from the 9 through 12 progressions. I contact West Salem science teacher quite a bit. They're doing standards based, so we work together quite a bit. We use some stuff from Amory. Steph Wagner from CISA provided us a lot of good information and a lot of good rubrics from the state to use. So we went through and just built all these.
And so
then-
if I could just ask, just
Yeah.
because the board's been talking a lot about standards-based education, when a parent gets their report card, gets feedback on their students' grades, they will get, the parent can see the feedback on each of these sub-skills, not just the standard above,
So
or?
they can only, Skyward's weird
Yeah.
in that you can only put in, I think it's 10 things for
Okay.
standards. I do have this readily available on my Canvas. I know our 8th grade teacher was getting hers posted too. We gotta get a hold of 6th grade, try to get them on the same page. But they are available. One of the reasons we made this is I wanted to make sure on a test that I gave students that they knew exactly what I was looking for. And I could break down specifically, so we have areas for feedback. They're perfect right there. You can grab them, you can put them on the test right away, and then build off of those. So they're a great starting point to move off of.
Thank you, I just wanted everyone to see that specificity in the feedback that they're getting, not just a overall grade, but they get.
Yeah, I found out
detail.
too that feedback needs to be a little bit bigger.
Bigger?
Yeah. And then we are trying to do a lot of extensions and activities. For 7th grade, I try pretty much every Friday to do, I call them fun Fridays. In a lot of my viterbo classes, I'm getting another degree now. They focus a lot on the 4 C's, so communication, well, I shouldn't have said that.
One C.
Creative thinking, problem solving, just skills that it'd be good for the students to start working on now. Again, that can be used going down the road. So for that, I use a lot of STEM activities. I know my old 7th grade science teacher gave me a lot of old destination imagination activities that are good for teamwork, team building, all that sort of stuff. An example I had from 8th grade was they did a friction lab during their unit. So she took them all around the school to different areas and had them test, I think it was with hockey pucks and hockey sticks. Test speeds, see the difference that friction makes on the surfaces. Just a cool extension activity. And then for other extensions, if you go one more forward, I had some stuff for students in the classroom. This was very short. But for 7th grade, I'm jumping ahead. I did include some student work. It was one that I thought was kind of exemplified what we were looking for in terms of writing explanations. So this is actually a response to the assessment that I did have planned. If you jump forward one more. So this was the metabolism one that I was talking about. This student believed that they were most confident in explaining diabetes. So that kind of worked into our unit because it involves cellular respiration, the molecules that you need. And it was just a really solid response. And then we are working that bottom one right now. Our next focus for the assessment is including evidence to refute other claims. So you can see we're building up to it. I started just with short conclusions, and now we're working up to really building out that skill as we develop more mastery of arguing for your claim in an argument. And then if you go forward one, so 7th grade, it looks a lot better now. There's a lot of lettuce growing and broccoli and some other stuff. But I did apply for an EF grant for an aquaponics system. So right now the kids are learning how to do water quality tests. We've talked a lot about habitats for fish because there's 26 blue tilapia. I lost a few. There's tilapia in there, so we're learning what kind of habitats fish need, how to grow different plants, and then when we get to it's called populations and resources. We talk a lot about like farming practices and the cycle of nutrients. We have a example readily available in the classroom for how different animals, plants, and bacteria all connect. So that's been really fun. We get to eat what we grow, so kids always love that. 8th grade, this was just an example. This was their energy systems. So they made a lot of different representations of energy systems. I know there were some good ones. The kids got really into it. We got a little Iron Man on the far right. You're starting to build that out. But we're just working to kind of develop off of our curriculum as well to provide kids opportunities to learn about other concepts and to get some more hands-on experiences because we thought a lot of them learn best in that method. And that's all I have. If you guys have questions.
You sound like a phenomenal teacher. How often do you meet with your PLC?
We meet every Friday from, 2:10 when the students leave to 3:10? And then 6th grade, since those 3 teachers also teach social studies, ELA, and one of them does math too, they try to send one every week, so they're getting the topics. But no, today we talked about maybe trying to get more time. We always talk about more time. More time would be so helpful. But it's every Friday for an hour.
I appreciated your presentation a lot. And I was really interested in the way you did the modalities and the assessment. That's really cool. Do other content areas in the middle school also use different modalities in their assessments?
I'm quite sure that all of them try their best to get modalities of any kind. I know with the standards base especially, math right now is full implementation. I'm piloting, so I know myself and math are trying really hard to do that. Math is a tricky one to do, I think, but I know they are working at it, and I know it's a conscious effort on behalf of everyone to do that.
That's really that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Zach? As he started off by saying this is his second year, and did you catch all those leadership roles that he's already jumped into? Doing fantastic work, was here all day today, or all morning anyway, working through with the rest of the PLC leaders. We're doing an alignment between the level of rigor expected on the forward and what's happening in our classroom and daily instruction and assessments. And so, an excellent advocate for the team. So,
Thank you.
thanks for your time.
Thank you.
You also have the choice to go, right?
I was glad he did because I was nervous
day.
about it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, so that concludes 7-1 and 6-1. We are moving on to the 5 series, community engagement. First is gifts and grants, some more good news.
Yeah, so wanted to recognize and congratulate Lillian Adam. She did a fundraiser at the high school. She was interested in helping the Angel Funds is what her passion was, and she sold stars during the lunch hour, and in the month of October raised $731, and she said that her goal is to make sure that all seniors have the funds they need to participate in the graduation ceremony without having to worry about it. So that is fantastic for her. The school nursing services. It is in the form, it's called a grant, but it's a non-competitive grant, and so it really was a disbursement through the CSAs, but it is $15,984.77. That is meant for additional nursing services, it says, and it leaves it pretty general in that. And so honestly, during COVID, we were looking for additional help for Elizabeth, but nursing services are also at a high premium. And so Jill and I met with Elizabeth to really talk about what her most specific needs are. And as you hear during her report each year, the number of students that have pretty significant medical needs continues to grow, and staff that go into education are not always comfortable with medical needs, right? Those two fields do not converge all the time. And so she is hoping for some part-time nursing services or a health aide, perhaps someone that has a CNA designation that could help with some of the lumps and bumps that she gets called around to the different schools to be able to monitor, so that she can focus more on those extremely medically fragile kids and providing support for them. I know she shared with you that the number of type 1 diabetics that she's monitoring continues to grow, and that takes an awful lot of her expertise to be able to help them throughout the day. So we are excited to be able to add that. And then I also added the paperwork for the Lunda Theater. I know that we've talked about it before, but it certainly is worth mentioning again that the Lunda Charitable Trust will be partnering in our revamping of the theater in the amount of $114,000. When we get to our facilities, Jill will give you an update on the timing of that project, but wanted to formally recognize that grant as well.
I move to accept the grants.
Second.
All right, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5.2 public comment, and told we have 2.
Michael Shepherd.
You can put me in front of 500 kids, but this is nerve-wracking. So, good evening, members of the school board and Dr. Severson. When I was hired in August of 2001, Dr. Dennis Richards was the superintendent. I remember many of my interactions with him because he made it a point to welcome me to the district. He continued to make it a point to learn my name and ask about me not as an employee but as a person. As a young recent college graduate, his welcoming spirit spoke volumes about the district I would be working for. A short time later, we welcomed a current employee into a new role as principal of Gebhardt Elementary School, Dr. Shelley Severson. And when I first visited her, I noticed that her office was decorated wall to wall with Wizard of Oz memorabilia. And on 2 walls, she had windows to observe the hallways of her school. And even though her office was well decorated and had an amazing view of her students, you seldom saw her there. Every day, Dr. Severson was in the halls and classrooms, engaging with both students and staff, bringing her positive energy into every individual's lives. Now she is our superintendent. She has risen through the ranks to the very top position in this district, serving her staff and her students. And unlike previous superintendents who have come from outside the district, such as he who shall not be named, Dr. Severson couldn't afford to burn bridges during her time here. She had to maintain positive relationships with her colleagues and community, working tirelessly to earn and retain their trust to become their leader. To accuse her of creating a workplace environment that is anything but ideal is utterly false. In my 21 years here, I cannot remember a time when she has even raised her voice, even while being confronted with a slanderous attack, as we witnessed in our last school board meeting, or the endless cases of libel appearing in our local newspapers. I spoke earlier of the sincerity that Dr. Richards extended to me. To say that Dr. Severson has surpassed that level of compassion for myself, her staff, her students, and this community is an understatement. Dr. Severson consistently strives to hold us all to a higher standard of excellence while being the epitome of class and grace. I have been content to be the bystander, avoiding the bullying, while we watched her character be torn to shreds by many who don't even have students enrolled in this district. I ask these individuals whose energy is fueled by rumors and hearsay to stop. Because this is not constructive feedback geared towards making the district better. This is a smear campaign targeting one of the nicest and brightest people I have ever had the privilege to work with. I want to close with a quote from an email from Dr. Severson that I save and reread it whenever I need a little pick-me-up. A little bit of context, I had discovered a very unique geospatial tool that I thought could be brought into the district, and I emailed her with a subject heading that just said, "Big idea." And this, her response just speaks volumes to who she is. It says, "Hi, Mike, I'm not going to lie. When I see your name and Big Idea together, my brain has no idea what could possibly be coming next. Said with love and respect for the innovative ideas you have shared over the years. School board members, thank you for your time, and Dr. Severson, thank you for everything."
All right, thank you. Next,
Patty Jacobson.
I was thinking, I'm Patty Jacobson down in Manchester. I was thinking I would be speaking later on because it has to do with the student support, review that you're doing. And I don't know what's going on in the district, so it would be good to hear what each of these schools are doing to support their students. But I was here to kind of urge you to at least use the document that was presented to Jackson County for Education in support of students as a kind of a guideline if you don't like the whole thing, but use it as a format for some consistency across the district. It would be very helpful if parents knew, no matter what school they were in, if their student or if the student themselves has an issue with either bullying, academics, or whatever the issue might be. It would be nice to have a format that was consistent across the district for them to address those issues with school staff. And so I guess that's all I wanted to say, just to kind of think about that as you discuss it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment. Next is item 5.3, the middle school wrestling co-op.
So as I shared with you, it is a non-WIA sport, and so there is not a form from them that needs to be filled out and signed by both, but it makes sense to mirror that process. The Alma Center School District has 4 to 5 students that are pretty serious about wrestling, and they are getting through the middle school ages. They have been engaging with Tiger Youth Wrestling up until this point. Wrestling is one of those sports that numbers really matter, right? When you go to a meet with another school, if you have a bunch of open slots, it negatively impacts your team while you can still shine as an individual. And so our high school wrestling program is very interested in broadening the pool of athletes that we would be able to have on a potential varsity team. So again, while this is middle school, not varsity, they've been working together as youth. They are interested in getting to compete at that level as well. Alma Center doesn't have the facilities, the coaching staff, and the numbers that we do, and so they're asking to join, remembering that this is a winter sport, and we also co-op with them at the high school level for hockey in the winter as well. So just wanted to share that with you. Jill is doing some investigating to make sure that we get the insurance and liability, as the WIAA agreement protects both districts at that level. We are going to mirror that at the middle school level so that both districts can access that activity.
Need a motion for this?
Me too.
I make a motion to accept the wrestling co-op as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? I just have one question. Do you happen to know the grades of the students?
I don't, because
Okay.
we're talking about joining as a middle
Right,
school.
yeah.
So
So
then
I
it would
didn't
be
know
6,
if-
7,
yeah.
and 8. Yep.
So obviously then, when this gets to be when the oldest of these students enters his freshman year, we will need to,
They will need to decide if
Because
they are interested in joining for a formal WIAA agreement.
because we
Yeah.
currently are not at the varsity level.
Not in wrestling, no. No, I don't believe we co-op with anyone for wrestling varsity. I don't
I
think so.
don't believe so, but I don't.
I like the idea of the mirroring of the WIA contract like we usually do. That makes sense with this.
Further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 5.4, Indian education policies and procedures.
As I mentioned in my notes, annually, this is something that we need to include for our impact aid application with the federal government, that the board has reviewed our Indian policies and procedures. And so this is that annual review. We've just always done it in November, and that application is due in January. So we take the approved board minutes in December and send those on as evidence that they've been reviewed. We are not recommending any changes to that at this time. I'm unsure if the full board is aware that Nicole has, you worked because you did the resolutions, but that Nicole has taken over that Title VI leadership role in the district.
I move to approve the Indian education policies and procedures.
And,
Second.
and just to be clear, because we're not changing this, we don't need a first and second read.
Correct.
Okay. So we have a motion and second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, our WASB Delegate Assembly Representative, and this is for is it January 17th to the 20th date?
Who's going?
I cannot.
Just you and I?
And Mr. Epps is also registered. Right, ready? Mr. Epps has registered
For
the WASB Joint Convention.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Since Mr. Epps had volunteered to do it last year but was unable to, I guess I would nominate Tom Epps to be a representative upon his agreement.
On his agreement, yes.
Yeah.
I would second that. I think that would be good.
We're tempting fate, second
Well,
time.
I mean, and if anything,
Right.
I'm there anyway representing the region, that I could just get extra clicker.
So do we want to nominate a primary and an alternate?
Well, when Mary Jo said she would serve as the alternate.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
right. That-
I'm able to.
And that's what I'm saying, if we formally put Tom as our primary and put you as the alternate.
I'm confident Tom will be there.
Yeah.
Right. So did you make, you
I
moved
moved.
and seconded? Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a motion and a second for Tom Epps to be our assembly representative. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Tom it is. All right, next, the private school participation in non-WIAA athletics and clubs. So this is a reconsideration of the September agenda item.
And I brought this forward because I wondered how the board felt about this after denying the other three, I believe, requests that were opt-out. We denied them participation, so I wanted to bring it forward again for reconsideration or just discussion. I don't know how everybody feels.
I've had a number of staff tell me since our September meeting, they were disappointed that the board went forward in the direction we did. Kind of the feeling and that I'm getting is that we've created the haves and have-nots. So we disallow those who are using free education, but we're currently allowing those who are able to pay for private education outside of our district. And so it feels a little bit like if you can afford to go to private school, you can use our clubs, sports, whatever resources, but if you can't, then we're disallowing that.
I also had staff contact me on that same position. But then, I'm trying to really think through this. And Sparta does allow anybody who goes to their private school, their religious school, to participate in their activities. If we had a private school in Black River, would we allow those kids to participate? So I'm kind of torn between the two. I don't know what the right answer is.
And I do just want to remind the board, remember when we first talked about this, I showed you the charts of where the funding follows, right? So in open and roll out, the funding follows that student to another public school, and it is a public school choosing another public school versus choosing a religious education. So just a reminder, the funding, unless they're part of the voucher system, the funding does not follow to a religious school.
I have very mixed feelings on it right now. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I'm also very mixed.
Yeah, I'm mixed. I'm kind of in the middle.
Nick or Mary Jo, what do you think?
I've also been contacted and hearing both sides of things. And I do not think it's a good idea for people who are open enrolled out to come back and say, I want this piece of your district and not the other. I think it puts our staff on overload with students that aren't theirs. Absolutely, I mean, it's a family's choice to go where they want to, and when they're considering that move, they also have to consider the whole picture for their children, not just piece by piece by piece by piece. And I guess I would choose not to at this point, not to approve it.
So like for a religious school, the money basically stays in the district, you're saying?
It depends if they're part of the school voucher program. So there are some schools that family that chooses there's still public tax dollars that go to that school to support that student going there. It is not the same as open enrollment, but there is still taxpayer funded. I'm not trying to muddy waters, I just want to try to provide clarity. To Mary Jo's point, if there is a private school in our community, us as the public school would have to provide Title I services to that private school as well as assistant special education services to that school, because private schools are looked at differently than other public schools. So we don't have a private school in our community, so we don't have to do that. A student who moves to a private school outside of our district, we don't have that responsibility. The Sparta Area School District would have to provide Title I or special education services for any students that go to the Sparta private school. So the only point I'm trying to make is that state law treats private schools differently than open enroll out. That's all that I'm trying to articulate.
And are we sending a confusing message to the general public that no for some and yes for some? That's kind of a confusing message too, so.
But if it was like a homeschool kid, then they could.
Then there is state law that says we must allow, not can, must allow. But homeschool, we're not sending any state aid anywhere else either.
I don't think you're gonna wrap that much money into coaching a kid that's part of a team. It's gonna be the same expense if there's 6 kids on the team or 10. You know.
So when we reconsider this, do we need a motion or what do we do
We
with
would
it?
definitely need a motion.
Is there someone that would like to make a motion?
Do we have more that have applied for the rest of the school year? Because I feel like we made a decision, and I would like to hear how that went for that one student that we allowed that.
So I'm not aware of any other families who are transporting to a private school. Are you aware of any? Principals, are you aware of any? No, I'm not aware of any other
Well, we
private.
must have some because we have vouchers going
Yeah.
out. So we have some, but I don't know who they are. We don't know who they are.
Do we have a request at this time for another student to take part in a program coming up at this point?
No.
Or is it something we can give some more thought to?
Your last, I would have to look at the minutes, but your last motion was open enrolled out students could not participate in. So if it wouldn't rise to your level if there was a request, I would say the board decided, right? So, but I have not been asked.
So that would cover even those that are just going to a private school for.
It would not, because
It
open
would
enrolled
just
out
open enroll out.
is different than
Okay.
private school.
We were pretty
It's
careful.
muddy as heck, but
Yeah.
they are different in every function.
We are down 2 board members tonight. We could, I mean, if this is of no effect currently, we could table this for our December meeting.
I would like to give it a little bit more thought for our December meeting, so I would be in favor of tabling this. To get a little bit, maybe we'll get feedback from community, feedback from staff. Maybe we would get some.
It seems like it's kind of a minute business doing for the whole school district.
A what?
It's a real minute thing of what's going on in the district. You have like one person doing it.
It did
right-
cause
for
some
right now.
outreach though from the
Yes.
staff.
Yeah.
But right now,
And-
there's
Yeah,
one.
and I said staff, I've heard from a lot of staff, I've also heard from a number of parents as well. Just need to double check.
I don't know of other school districts that will allow that.
Sparta does, right, so the school is in their community.
But they've made a agreement with their schools. I mean, Independence has their private school too, but they have an agreement with the school district. This is a student who's not in our district who wants to agree. I mean, if that school wants to make an agreement with us, that private school, that's a different story. right?
I think that those agreements happen very naturally when the school is in that community because legally they are also providing Title I services and perhaps special education support. So there is automatically a relationship created. When it is out of district is when that relationship is not forced. I could reach out to them and ask if that's what you're asking me to do.
I would expect the school wanting the partnership to reach out to us.
But the school has a partnership for the vast majority of their
For
athletes.
their community, but this is different.
Mhm.
And I know the communities that have private schools and public schools, even in our CISA, they will have an agreement with the school district.
Mhm.
It isn't just one board deciding per student on stuff. I mean, just like we did the agreement on the WIAs and stuff, I mean, it includes everybody that wants to participate. So both districts are deciding it.
Would you wanna make a motion then?
I'm in favor of tabling it, like you said. I would second your motion to table it and more
So what would
consideration.
happen if, like, say a kid deferred and went to Alma Center and then was in their wrestling program and went to Black River?
So,
That'd be okay.
so a student attends Alma Center,
Yeah,
What'd you
but
say?
they went to Black River,
Oh.
then they moved to Alma Center, or like
open
transferred,
enrolled.
open enrolled, and then they come back to Black River to wrestle.
Yeah, that's an agreement between our school districts. We just made that motion, and we have that with many sports. So that's an agreement, a formal agreement with the Alma Center School District that's out.
And we have had that scenario.
And
Lived in our district, open enrolled out, and then co-opted and participated in that sport. And ironically, then came and stopped open enrolling out and brought their kids to our district.
I'll save it for a while and then come back. Yeah.
a lot of considerations, like for Jill to check on insurance and make sure that liability is covered. I mean, I think we have a lot of things to check on before we open
Didn't
that.
they already do that?
Pardon?
Didn't they already do
I
that?
think
'Cause
they
it
did.
was-
Jill already checked, yeah.
Yeah, this is, school to one kid is different than school to school.
Right,
So there was a distinction that you were trying to make, so I just wanna follow up and see if, because they're gonna be transporting, you know, all of that, so it may just fall on them, we just, simple agreement.
Right, so we have a motion to table and a second. Further discussion? Right, all those in favor of tabling item 5.6?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, 5.6 is tabled until, we'll put that on our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is, I didn't write down.
December 19th.
December 19th, thank you. Alright, next is our Community Engagement Committee update. Do you wanna do that one?
We had our second community conversation on November 2nd. We had some of the same people, but a lot of different people, and we ended up going into 4 different areas to visit. One was community engagement, one was supporting staff, another one was
And it was communication.
parental involvement. And then there was another group of, we called it the wild card, nothing fit in that group. And we all talked together and have somewhat of an action plan on what we want to do. I was in the, I'll call it the wild card group, and our assignment was to, before our next meeting, is to reach out to at least 2 people in the community that perhaps might have different viewpoints on our school and talk about what they see as strengths, weaknesses, ways to bridge gaps, and then we're going to report back to the committee. Our committee also decided that we will meet the same day as school board meeting, 3rd Monday of each month at 4 o'clock. We're struggling a little bit in getting a way to really attack this community engagement discussion, but we're working on it. I guess that's what I'd say.
Yeah, in our next meeting,
January 11th.
January 11th
Community.
at 6 p.m. I think.
And we haven't discussed where that'll be yet.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah, it's been good work. It's been challenging, but it's exciting to have conversations with a lot of our community members that are interested in being involved. That concludes the 5 series. We're in the 6th series. We've completed 6-1. 6-2 is employment recommendations.
There are none that need the board's approval tonight.
There's no questions. Dr. Severson, moving on. 6.3 is leadership culture. The admin team has asked to speak tonight, so I don't know how you plan to structure this, but
Have a plan, a list.
So the admin team would like to take a moment to respond to some of the comments made by school board member Troy Webb at the last board meeting. Those comments referenced staff members who were afraid of losing their jobs. To those staff members who are fearful for their jobs, we are sorry. This is a terrible way to come into work each day. Every day, the administration team works to solve conflicts between students and students, staff and students, and staff members and staff members. Please give us the opportunity to try to resolve some of the conflicts you are experiencing at work. Come collaborate with us so we can make working in our district better for you.
I'm going to be reading this on behalf of Mr. Nortman, who couldn't be here tonight. It was very, very important to him that you all know that these are his words. There have been many times that we have called on Dr. Severson when we have been concerned about a staff member's performance. Dr. Severson has been nothing but compassionate to each individual. She has listened to them and tried to understand their concerns and point of view. We are confident that the conversations that you have with any member of the admin team, including Dr. Severson, will be treated in the same way.
In response to Dr. Severson being called corrupt in her hiring practice, Dr. Severson brings all her hiring decisions to a team. Dr. Severson described the hiring process at the last board meeting, and it is followed in hiring decisions in the district. Dr. Severson works to hire district level employees, but is not involved with hiring staff at each of the building levels. She trusts her administration team members to hire individuals that are the best for their building.
Dr. Severson is a respected leader not only by all of her staff, but by other educators around the state. Thus far, Dr. Severson has taken on the brunt of the negativity that has been hurled. She has not asked us to speak or to take on the weight of these negative comments. However, I believe that one of the unique factors of being an educator that does not necessarily apply to other professions is a reliance on the practice of reflection. We are taught and encouraged to regularly engage in reflective practices that grow our capacity and our ability to improve outcomes for students. Being reflective practitioners forces us to look in the mirror for areas of improvement. I want to address the statements that cite administration. When such statements are made, we reflect and interpret it to mean all of the facets of the administration team. Hurtful comments that are not of merit and are so vague that no corrective action can be taken leaves administration in the dark and unable to adequately address any areas of concern. Comments have also been made about the district. In instances when the district is referred to, our staff takes on this weight directly on their shoulders. We all encourage partnership to solve our shortcomings, and we recognize that we are not perfect. We are standing here saying we are open to work together. If the rhetoric continues as it has thus far, I'm concerned what will happen to our people, our teachers, our support staff. These comments carry weight. If it continues, if it continues to be weight that our staff carries without redress, I'm concerned that our people will find a different community to work in, a community that is supportive, a community that works together, and a community that does not tolerate unsupported claims.
And on a personal note, one of the reasons I came to Blackbird Falls is because of the team atmosphere I felt during my interview. Dr. Severson led the interview, but all members of the team were able to ask additional questions, and team members felt comfortable voicing their questions or comments. I knew that if I worked in Blackbird Falls, my opinion would be valued and taken into consideration. After working in the district for over a year, I was right. Dr. Severson may be the leader of the admin team, but we all know we are an integral part of helping the district and thus our students grow.
Principal Luke Madsen, high school principal Luke Madsen couldn't be here tonight, but he did have some profound words that he wanted to share, and I volunteered to read them for him. So he says, during my 25 years as an educator, I've had the opportunity to work with 11 different superintendents. With all due respect to the other 10 folks, Dr. Shelley Severson's name belongs at the top of that list of effective district administrators. She's a visionary leader who's inspired me to do better, excuse me, and be better. I find myself often wondering whether those who continue to make false and unfair claims about her character and leadership understand the damage they are doing to our district as a whole. I also wonder if they know that they aren't going to get anywhere with her. They aren't going to get anyone with her ability and experience if she were to choose to leave. I'm proud to work for Dr. Severson, and I'm thankful that she is leading this district. Respectfully, Luke Madsen.
These are not my words. I could stand up here for the rest of the night and recite the number of things that I appreciate about Dr. Severson. As I look back and reflect, now in my 4th year as an administrator within the district, there are a few things that stand out to me about Dr. Severson's leadership. Hands-on leadership, whether it's taking part in Orange Frog training, leading district data teams, or working side by side with our administrative teams. Dr. Severson rolls up her sleeves, and she's right there and she's in it with us. She treats every single person with respect, values their opinions, and considers all angles, while also understanding that she is the leader and takes responsibility for the district. It's sickening seeing articles written, public comments made, or notes read by school board members by people who haven't been there to see the real things that Dr. Severson does on an everyday basis that make a positive impact. In repeating what Mr. Madsen's words mentioned, all of us have worked in different districts or have had different superintendents. You guys don't know what we have here, and it needs to be valued. For those of you with such sharp, baseless criticisms of Dr. Severson's leadership, you have no idea what you have. I'm extremely grateful to work alongside Dr. Severson. She has made me a better leader and a better person.
I hear Dr. Severson one more time. Come on, folks. Shelley, right?
Sorry, do you want me to use a different? I know that I haven't been in the district as long as the others up here, but I feel that I have been in education long enough to know what good leadership looks like. I've been fortunate to have worked for some remarkable district leaders over my 16-year career, and Dr. Severson is certainly at the top of that list. What I've learned from her over the past year and a half in regards to professionalism, leadership, and decorum has been invaluable. Dr. Severson has been nothing but supportive and encouraging since I've started working in the district, and I continue to be awe-inspired by her knowledge, ability to problem solve, genuine care for others, and her love for the school district of Blackbird Falls.
So, the aforementioned criticisms of Dr. Severson are baseless and are a distraction from our work to help students succeed. We believe in Dr. Severson's leadership for our administration team and our district. Let's focus on areas that will help our students succeed, like better attendance, rigorous and engaging curriculum, promoting community and family engagement, and supporting our teachers. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'd just like to add too, I mean, Dr. Severson is a very well-respected superintendent among our state. And as a board member, I've actually, in my 14 years, been under 4 superintendents, you guys. Started out with Dr. Richards and Paul Blanford and Ron Sari and Dr. Severson. So, I mean, I've had experience in many things, as well as working at the state level with many different districts, and we are very fortunate to have our leadership that we have. And with all of you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for standing up and voicing your opinion. I agree with it all.
If I could just for a second,
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you very, very, very much. I walked into a meeting that I wasn't a part of and was facilitating, and then I left to go to the restroom, and I came back in and there was a lot of weirdness happening that I was uncertain. And when they wouldn't give me words, I said, should I go see how Marty is today? And they go, sure, go do that. So I went downstairs and they were clearly having this conversation. And Mike, I'm gonna include you in this conversation, as well as the many staff members who've reached out since last month's meeting. Whew. Unfortunately, over the years, I've gotten better at taking criticism without crying than I have kindness without crying, right? I just really want to emphasize the pieces that mean the most to me are the valuing the people and the recognition that nobody stands alone, that it is always a team approach. And so I appreciate you taking the time and for all of you to do that, because I'm your boss, I get that, but I hope it doesn't feel like that most of the time, right? Most of our work is done collaboratively, and so I just really appreciate you taking the time to do that and the courage to say those words at a time when it's easier to duck and cover than to stick your neck out. So thank you very much.
All right. On that note, that concludes the 6 series. We've already heard 7.1. We are now up to 7.2, the systems of student support.
And that is taken away by them as well.
Yeah, I was going to say this is probably the same folks.
So you heard a lot of this conversation last month, and you had asked for it to be reiterated, and so they put it into slides so that you can hear through it. So, and hopefully you will see, as Patty mentioned before, hopefully you will see a lot of continuity, so that I think you'll see that there is an awful lot of similarities between how each of the buildings handled this.
So if you notice the arrows, we're going to work from left to right. And so at the tier 1 level, in any instance, the classroom teacher is our first line of defense, for lack of a better word. We examine assessments that help us inform target time groups. We're thinking about academic concerns. We look at iReady data for math. We look at DIBELS for reading. In kindergarten, we use what's called the BEST screener. If parents opt into this, they have the option to opt out. We also examine major and minor behavioral data to look for trends for students who might need some additional support. And if any of those raise a flag, or that if that data shows that we're not meeting the students' needs, we take it to the next step. And so when students aren't experiencing success, we have target time groups. So we'll address academic needs in the classroom or in tier 2 or tier 3 academic grouping. We have student success conferences. So we meet with parents and families, guardians, and talk about the things that we're seeing in school to keep them abreast of the situation that we're seeing. We have what's called Tiger Assistance Teams or TAT team meetings. So anytime that we've got a concern, whether it's behavioral, academic, this year I'm going to allude to a little something I'm going to talk about in a little bit, potty training, we bring parents along for the ride every step of the way. We also have what's called casting meetings, and you cannot pay me to tell you what that acronym stands for off the top of my head, something about student support services. And so we have those, and that's where at Forest Street, how that team functions is we are looking at attendance data. If we're noticing developmental concerns in the classroom, we tap into Amy Hunter, Francesca Bird, Vicki Mikulski, and sometimes we'll have families that reach out to us and they will share, my student, my child had a significant trauma that happened to them, unfortunately. Is there anybody that can connect with them in the classroom? Sometimes they want our guidance counselor, and sometimes they want more intensive services, and they're seeking out the mental health therapist that uses the space in our building. At any point in time, parents can always come to us and say, I want to talk about a concern, I'm really wondering how my child is doing. And if those still aren't meeting it, then we move to tier 3. And so again, we look at, most frequently, we look at academic and behavioral supports for our students. And if tier 2 and tier 3 aren't meeting the students' needs, then we examine if a special education referral is what is needed at Forest Street.
And can we talk about Forest Street's logo?
I was
Is
gonna
that
ask,
brand
is
new?
that
Let's
new?
talk about that for a second. Tell us.
So that is our new logo. We are Forest Street Elementary, which we are still over the moon about. And one of
That's all it takes?
little things, little things. So one of my good friends is actually a graphic designer for Jack Links, and he designed that for us. So
That's cute.
That is good. Nice.
Any questions on Forest Street systems?
All right, so I saw Melanie using arrows, working on it at the same time, so we also inserted an arrow. But we kind of based it more off of the 4 questions of the PLC process. The professional learning communities are widely accepted as the best way to go about education. The 4 questions from left to right. What do we want all students to know? How will we know that they learn it? How will we respond when they don't learn it? And how will we extend learning if they do know what we want them to know?
What? I'm sorry. Okay.
We
So the first part.
had an agreement.
A lot of this stuff. A lot of the stuff is going to be very similar to Melanie's stuff. But first box, what do we want students to know? Common Core state standards. Within those state standards, our grade level teams have broken down into what they believe are the most important, and we call those the grade level guarantees. There's something like 92 billion standards, and so to focus on every single one of them, you just can't do it. So we focus a great amount of attention on the grade level guarantees, and then also cover the 92 million. Characteristics of a successful learner, those are the how to be a good person things that you'll see on our report card. Things like being respectful, being responsible, making sure your desk is clean, those sort of things. Box number 2, how will we know that they learn it? So what are our assessments to figure out if what we want them to learn, we taught them? iReady data and forward data, those are our assessments throughout the year. iReady's taken 3 times as a screener so that we can make adjustments. Forward data is what you see once a year in the paper. We use exit slips after each lesson so that we can tell if they learned what it is that we taught them just during that lesson, and then we can adapt and reteach if they didn't learn it. We use unit assessments for the same thing, and then we also use behavioral data gauged by office discipline referrals, ODRs for short. How do we respond when they don't learn? We use Tier 2 and Tier 3 growth interventions. Last month I was up here and I showed you what we do for target time and broke down a 2nd grade example of I think there's 12 different groups that they break into. That is Tier 2 target time intervention. They all have something different. Similarly for behavior, in Tier 2 and Tier 3 PBIS, that stands for Positive Behavior Intervention Systems, we ask them to jump into some sort of behavior intervention program to try and fix the behavior. And then we also have TAT meetings. This is much more specific to individual learners. They can be requested by the teacher, or they can be requested by a parent, or even at the older levels requested by a student. And we can break down exactly what it is that they need the most. Mrs. Floyd mentioned the CAST referral, which is the same for student services. We talk about home attendance, that sort of thing. So what do we have? What happens if they do know what it is that we're trying to teach them? We have target time enrichment interventions. We celebrate the successes. We have gifted and talented activities. An example there, some 12 third graders went to, I believe it was GET for a problem solving day. And so Blair Taylor, not GET. And they did a problem solving day it's for the kids that were ready for that sort of thing. And then we differentiate every single lesson, some for students that need a little more practice, some for need extension. So we differentiate.
All right, so Dan called me at about 5 and said, can you talk about the middle school too? And I said, yes, I can. So here we are. The middle school, you're going to hear a lot of the same things like in the elementary school. So their student assessments, they use that iReady data in reading and math. They have DIBELS for reading. They also use a lot of the EduClimber data. So those attendance data, how many majors and minors are students getting? Are there other things that are getting in the way of the students learning? So they're going to take that EduClimber data, add it with the reading and math, iReady data, and kind of get a whole picture of the student to try to see where they can get to that root cause of what is maybe helping the student or hindering them from learning. In their student assistance, they have morning focus. So kind of like in the elementary school, they have that morning meeting. The middle school is broken up into those focus groups. where they do conferencing. So every focus teacher is going to talk to each student each week, kind of check with their grades, check on how they're doing, and that'll happen right away in the morning for those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Then they have those CAS meetings that we've all talked about, which are counselor, administration, school social worker, school psych team meetings, just so everyone knows. Thank you. And there they talk about attendance behavior. That is where all of those people that I just listed are there to talk about how do we support our students. And then those people are there so that they can give us a district-wide lens. So Vicki works with all of our students all over the district. And so does Amy Hunter, right? So that they can make sure the families are getting taken care of as well. At the middle school, those grade level teams also get together and talk about all those different things, what they're seeing in their students, and how they can help each other as they go through the day. And they also have those Tiger Assistant Team meetings, so those TAT meetings, which get more specific. They bring parents in so that they can really get to that root cause and include the parents in on the decisions that are being made for their students that have risen to that higher level. And they also have those student success conferences, which were previously known as parent-teacher conferences, just rebranding them a little bit. Additional supports, so tier 2 and 3 interventions for academic and behavior, so that PBIS and those academic interventions. So those that we are seeing are super struggling. They do more, they'll do check-in, check-out with them. They'll do more behavior support, so to try to help them through the day and gain those skills they need to be successful. And they might also do a special education referral if needed. And then we have the high school, which clearly you can see at the high school, we decide that aesthetics is not important, and there it is. That's what happens. So we have some of the same things. So we have advising. It's not in the middle of the front of the first part of the day anymore. It's kind of towards the end. But that's where our students are going to get those bi-weekly conferencing with their advisor. They're going to check in on grades, how things are going, and really work with each student to make sure that their needs are being met. We have the CAST referral process. And our counseling office also meets with every student every year. So in the fall, right away, they have freshman conferences. So the two counselors will invite families in to come meet with them, but if their family doesn't come in, they'll meet with the student. And they talk about all the things that they need to know about. Where do you want to go after high school? How are things going right now? What kind of classes do you foresee yourself taking throughout high school? So they also meet with the seniors in the fall just to make sure that they're on track to whatever they want to do afterwards, and then those sophomore and juniors get met with during the spring. In those meetings, then they're going to talk about what does high school look like for you. If a student is struggling, we do have enhancement and prep classes in both English and math. So if their iReady scores are low or previous testing is low, or we're just noticing something in classes, we'll give them kind of a little booster before they get into algebra or get into English foundations and make sure that they're ready for the skills needed for those classes. If in those counseling meetings we learn that they have all these goals about going into apprenticeship or where they want to work, we'll hook them up with some transcripted credit classes or different college classes, so through Start College Now or Early College Credit program. And we also have WVS classes, so an online database. So if we don't have something that the student is interested in a class, we can give them enrichment opportunities in those classes through WVS as well. So that's the high school. Any questions?
Thank you. We hope that you heard layers and layers and layers and layers of support for students and families, right?
It's been happening all along.
Yeah. Don't sit down too far, folks, because your report cards are next. It is their show tonight.
Is there any further discussion or questions on that one?
No, like Dr. Severson said, Shelley said, there's layers throughout every system. I think that helps catch a lot of kids that way.
Very consistent, lots of support.
Would you actually open the district report card first instead of this? Sorry,
sure.
I should have been more clear. So I included all of them for you. I hope you've taken the opportunity to look through them. We will definitely spend more time. Right now, our January extra meeting is set up for January 2nd, so the first day back after break. And we'll do a much deeper dive into the card. So I just want to show you briefly what you're looking at. This is just our demographics. I did want to highlight that are economically disadvantaged is at 61% as a district. That's a significant increase. There were, 10 years ago, I don't think the elementaries were barely at 40%, and the high school was sitting about 25%. So that's a very, very drastic increase in free and reduced meals. So. All right, overall score of 62.4 meets expectations. Of the 422 districts in the state, they said that, 95% of them either meet or exceed expectations, or no, meets few expectations. No, it was the bottom one that there's only 5%. There is another layer of the meets few expectations. It is interesting when you look at districts, when you go to the DPI site, you can download the entire spreadsheet that has every single district, and it's easy to sort and separate by those different demographic groups. But that only tells you a small bit of the story, because when you look at the district card, they're made up of all those individual buildings, and sometimes a building will be significantly an outlier from the rest of the system. We are not as much like that because of our grade centers. When you have districts who have different attendance areas, those cards can really, really vary significantly based off of that. So if you recall, they compare the achievement. The dark color on top, the purple, is our district, and then the line below it is the state average. And then on that side is the growth. And again, the dark line on top is our district, and the line below that is the state average. Keep scrolling. Just to remind everybody, the target group outcomes, that is different than the way they used to analyze our gaps. Now they take the lowest performing 25%, and that becomes our target group, and they compare our lowest performing 25% to all of the rest of our 75%. So you're not being compared to other communities, other schools, or the state. You are being compared your bottom 25% to your remaining 75% is how they are calculating that piece. As you can see, chronic absenteeism, that is a significant challenge for us. When you see of all of our students, we are at 75%, and the state average is 85.7. And then our bottom 25%, it goes down to 66%, so almost 20 below the state average. And keep scrolling. That's just not very interesting. Keep going. The chart that I want to spend time on is that value added. If you would scroll. Stop one second. This one also gives you some indicators. They tell you by the little arrow in front of it whether it's trending up or whether it's trending down. And these are the disaggregated groups that we work through each. All of our data is presented by all of these disaggregated groups. Now you can scroll. So this is the overall performance of, if you look at advanced, the blue, proficient, basic, and below basic, and they show you 18-19, 2021, 21-22. They did not give report cards in that remaining year because of COVID. So keep scrolling. This gives you the chart format of where each of our disaggregated groups are. The ones that have the less than 20, they will only report out on a group if there are more than 20 students, because they want to be sure they are protecting the confidentiality of all students involved. So there's ELA, there's math. You can keep going. This is a value added chart, and that is one of my favorite charts of the whole report card business. So what they are saying is that a 3, where that line is right up and down the middle, is average value added. And so not just growth, this is value added. They are saying your system was added, value added compared to the average growth. And so if the box is colored in, it means it's at 3 or above, so it had above average value added. And if the box is hollow or open, it was below average. And they break it down by all of the different disaggregated groups. What I want to share with you is this is the district-wide one, and how very, very, very close we were on many of those, if not all the way there. Would you scroll just a little bit more? I think it is interesting to note that it even breaks it down between whether you were proficient last year or not proficient last year. If your value added was higher, in addition to the other demographics, it does it on your proficiency the previous year or not. I'm gonna ask you to open up one more card. When we get all the way to the back though, there's our participation rates that are, keep going all the way to the tables. These are the charts that we talked about before, advanced courses. 80 of our students successfully completed at least one AP class. So our district average last year was a 16, actually this is 2 years old data, isn't it? Doesn't it lag that much? I'm trying to find it. Nicole, do you remember? Isn't this 2 years?
2021.
Yeah, 2021, thank you, there, I knew it up there. So 16.8% of our district and 19.9% of the state. Dual enrollment, that is that number that we keep talking about, the incredible value that our community is getting, that 40.5% of our students have successfully completed post-secondary credits, and the state average is 18.6. Industry recognized credentials, that 2021 was a difficult year for some of our work-based learning placements, and so we were below the state average at 0.6. Typically we run at or above, and then the work-based learning, again, we were a little bit lower, but I do think that's because of the year that was. I think that number will go right back up. And then it also shares with you the participation by each of those disaggregated groups. Our board typically looks at our participation of our Native American students in extra and co-curriculars in June. This is a good way to look at their participation in some of these college and career readiness areas as well. So Mr. Nortman is out sick today, but I'd love for you to open up the middle school card because they really had a nice celebration that I would love to, and go all the way down to that value added chart. So you'll see those two lines. There we go. So when you look at math, remembering that a 3 is value added, and then look at how many of their first of all, every one of their disaggregated groups was colored in as value added, and some of them significantly above the value added. So if you'd scroll down, like our economically disadvantaged at 3.7 and then non 4.1, English proficient, we didn't have enough English language learners. Our students with disabilities were at the 3.0, and then look at the not proficient last year was closer to 4 than it was to 3. Today was exciting when we had the PLC leaders here. The two math people were here, and I said, I hope I'd already talked to one of them, but the other was the first time I had seen him. And I said, I hope you felt a little affirmation there. And he just had this huge smile. He's like, heck yeah, that felt really good to get to see that in front of the colleagues. And so I know that there was concern about some of the turnover at the middle school last year. Dan was not kidding. It was really hard work. They had to build so many layers of support. They hadn't had the layers of intervention that had existed at some of the other levels. And so they were able to do a little bit of a celebration over their scorecard this year. So it was exciting. Wanted to share that with you. And then if you would open up that chart that compares, it was a Excel
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
This one?
Yes, so this is data that I have just tracked over time. I'm not sure if everyone realizes that there are only 15 school districts in the state of Wisconsin that have a higher than 10% Native American population. The reason that we look at it in this way is because when you are anytime you're looking at numbers, it's nice to give them context, right? Give you some kind of a comparison opportunity. And so these would be districts that are more like us because of their demographics. And so all of these 15 have higher than 10% Native American population. And if you look at the names of them, I think it's always interesting for people because I think I've had people say, what about Wisconsin Dells? What about Baraboo? They're less than 10% Native American population. So these truly are the only ones. And you look at Menominee Indian School at 89% and Lac du Flambeau. That's the other piece to remember when you're looking at this. This is an elementary school only. It's only K-8, so there is no high school averaged in there, and Lakeland is a high school only. There is no elementary or middle school added in there. And so when you look at our performance of this group, we are in the top half of that group. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, and then the other slide, or the other tab on the bottom is our CISA comparison. So this one's tough to get all in one view. Actually, I'll shrink it for us. So this is in their ranking order from highest score to lowest score. And I did include their percent SES because these are kind of our neighboring school districts, if you will. That the range here is really quite significant. We are not the highest, but we're certainly knocking on that door. Arcadia at 67% free and reduced and Independence are both higher than us in that regard. So it gives you a little look at our seesaw. I'm going to scroll down so you can see the bottom part. There you go. So, any questions about that? We'll certainly do a deep dig later. Yep.
Who is now?
Norwalk, Ontario, Wilton.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that school listed and I couldn't place that.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So, all right, and so from that data dive, when we talked about them, it seems very appropriate to talk about, so now what, right? Now that we know this, now that we have that view from last year, what do we do about it? So I'm gonna take the principles yet again.
So at Red Creek, some of our celebrations were achievement of our Native American students and economically disadvantaged students. And that actually was the focus last year when it came to target time and looking at some of that data. So we know that putting that focus there really made a difference for those students, which is fantastic. And achievement of students with disabilities was also a success when looking at the report card. So concerns, we have some areas of growth. This has been a strength of Red Creek in the past and is weighted at 45% of the overall score. This year, we did not show a scoring of a positive impact in any of our demographic or math or reading. But we definitely have a lot of things in place that we are looking forward to doing to fix that for next year.
So the root cause of our concern is what we're really going after is engagement. There's a lot of great teaching going on. We have teachers who are working their butts off because they're phenomenal at what they do. We need to make sure that the students are also learning while they're doing it. So some action steps. Assure classroom management is strong. So if you think about 23 students in a classroom at some of our upper grade levels, if there's one of them that is dancing around the room thinking that they're a watermelon or something, then it's going to be hard for the rest of the class to know what's going on. Similar for any other type of management as far as behavior goes, making sure that our teachers have built strong relationships with those students is how we assure that the management takes over. We use proven engagement strategies, such as making sure that every student gets to answer a question 3 times in 30 to 40 minutes. Now you might be wondering, as we all grew up with the teacher at the front of the room and saying, okay, answer this question, and calling the next person with their hand raised and answer this next question. How does somebody answer 3 times in 30 minutes? How does everybody, answer 3 times in 30 minutes? Well, there's things like turn and talk, answer with the person next to you. Answer on your whiteboard and show everybody. Work in a group. That's how you get 3 answers in 30 minutes rather than one-on-one being called by. Test student engagement with exit slips. I mentioned this a little bit earlier when we were talking at the last slideshow. Exit slips are something that we are implementing at the end of each lesson, in which there is 2, maybe 3 questions based on the learning target for that lesson. The students fill it out. It's quick for them. It's quick for the teacher to grade and analyze and figure out if they need to be retaught or not. And then they reteach students based on those exit slips. We have a couple of goals, one for reading and one for math. Both of them, we want to increase 20 percentage points of the students that are at or above grade level. So if they're not at or above grade level now, we want 20% or 20 percentage points to grow. Currently in Reading, we have 22% of students who are at or above. Our goal by the end of the year is for 42% of those students to be at or above. Likewise, in math, we currently have 11 students at or above grade level. Our goal is 11%. The goal is to raise that by 20 percentage points up to 31% by the end of the year.
Those are great goals.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about the middle school already. They had lots to celebrate. So if you've seen the report card. So overall they went up by 2.5 points. They were at 65.5 and went to 68. So they were super excited about that overall score. But what they were really excited about is what Shelly showed you, right? The value added spot. And I think he included it on the next slide as well. Their value added was only 3 did not go up, right, for their value added, which is amazing, right? So they are doing great strides in the middle school to make sure that their classrooms and their teachers are doing what they can to help students improve within their classrooms. ELA is consistent with the state growth average, and math exceeded state growth average. So our middle school is rocking it, is what that all says right there. Their concerns right now are chronic absenteeism, and I think we feel that across the district. You'll hear about that at the high school one too. So how do we get kids into our classrooms and in there to learn for the whole entire class period? Their achievement scores for both ELA and math are below the state average, so they want to make sure that they're continuing to work on that. And they're doing that within their PLCs by looking at those guaranteed skills and making sure that they're working on those correct guaranteed skills. There's also an achievement gap in both areas for our disaggregated groups. So those are some of those concerns that they have still that they're going to be working on.
I forgot that we snipped that in, sorry.
So there's that, right? And so that's where you can see like the 4 that didn't go up in not the full blue, but 3 of them did improve from last year. They're just not in the blue part. So they're doing really great strides to keep moving and getting towards that value added that we want.
And so we've heard a lot of concern about our kids that are already at proficiency. Do we do anything for them? Proficient last year was above average value added in both ELA and significantly more in math. And so that is another data point that reinforces the idea that while we are continuously intervening for those below, we are also continuing to push those that are at proficiency.
So their root cause, they believe, is lack of engagement and that rigor and that grit. So they are seeing a little bit of COVID still, like relapse, right? Like people not knowing how to dig in and get their classes done. And so making sure that they're focusing on that engagement piece and getting students to really dig into their classes and work on the work well there. So they're going to utilize those classroom minutes. They're going to teach bell to bell, right? They're going to make sure that they're getting all of that time and they're using it all for learning. Intentional planning, so making sure that there's movement in there, there's engagement, there's working in groups, they're talking to each other, they're really addressing the learning and showing the learning for themselves as students, less teacher talking and more student engaging in the content. They're going to use those learning targets and formative assessment. So just like we talked about exit tickets at the elementary levels, making sure that they're seeing that at the middle school too, so that they can know right away if a student gets it or doesn't get it, and then can intervene by reteaching and regrouping, which is that 4th one up there, if they need to, based on if a student isn't, or a group of students isn't showing on those formative assessments that they get it. So their goal is 100% of our middle school students will reach their stretch goal in iReady. And so there is a growth goal, and then there's a stretch goal. And they are not saying that they're going to do the growth goal. They are going to have 100% of their middle school students reach that stretch goal, which is even greater. But Mr. Nortman says, we can't help reduce that gap if we're just continually going for that growth goal. He's like, we got to go for the stretch goal to reduce that gap. And so that is what they are going to be doing during this school year. And the high school, again, less graphics, we're really good. Okay, so our celebrations at the high school, we are really helping our students with disabilities grow, right? So our value added scores for our students with disabilities in ELA and math improved from the last year. So our special ed teachers are working really hard at individualizing their instruction, making sure that they are getting the skills that they need to keep improving and getting to their grade level scores and skills that they need to be successful. Our concerns, like everyone else, are attendance and our ACT scores, right? Our ACT scores have dipped, and we just want to make sure that we're giving all students what they need to be successful, and that ACT is one thing that they need to be able to move on if they choose to go to college, and we want to make sure that they're getting to whatever college they want to get to. So our root causes, same thing, lack of engagement, right? We want a lack of stamina. Students also don't see the value in ACT. If you didn't know this, colleges aren't accepting, they don't need it this year, they're accepting them, right? But they don't need it to get into colleges. So there's a little lack of feeling like I need it, need to do well to get into the college of my choice. So we are also working on movement in classrooms, making sure students are working together. They're the ones working and providing the knowledge that the group of knowledge that they need to succeed, right? And showing those skills. Action steps. We are actually getting a system called e-hall pass. So we are moving into the future. No more taking those little passes to the bathroom with you that get dirty and gross. It's all on a computer. We can track minutes that each student has missed from instruction. We can do different things about how many people can be in the hall, and we can know why students are in the hall because they'll all have to put it in. So we're moving to the future of passes. We're super excited about it. We're working on our collective efficacy for our staff around attendance, making sure that students, our staff, feel like they have a way to contribute to increasing our attendance. So how are they engaging kids in the classroom? How are they working through their lessons, teaching bell to bell, so that they're keeping kids within their four walls within the school? So again, planning for the 65 minutes of engaging instruction. And our PLC leaders are working right now to make sure that their curriculum and the guaranteed skills that they have selected also work with those ACT bands, right? So if we've selected guaranteed skills that also don't align a little bit with the ACT, we're not working together to make sure that we're giving our students what they need. And those ACT, right, a group of really smart people got together and said, these are the things that our students need to show that they're successful high school students. And so why not use those as a way to guide our curriculum and our guaranteed skills? So our goal is to decrease our chronic absenteeism in every desegregated group by 10% and increase our average ACT score by 10%. So you'll see those numbers there. So hopefully that e-hall pass helps with that, as well as some of those instruction we're giving around movement and class engagement.
Any questions for any of the teams? Do the kids still participate in ACT practice?
Yep, so they have a practice test day. They just did that a couple weeks ago. My days all run together, but I think it was just a couple weeks ago. And so they do that, and then we also have an ACT prep that comes a little bit closer to the test date. And our teachers have kind of gotten together and we have this lunch and learn, and they're talking about providing some additional ACT prep during that lunch and learn hour.
Okay, so like just guiding the students on what to expect.
Yep, so the practice test is simply just taking the test so they see what it's like, because stamina is a big thing for the ACT. Can you test for 4+ hours? And so that's really what that's about. We hire a company to do an ACT boot camp, and that's a lot of the strategies.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yep, the strategies and kind of working through the problems. Our teachers are talking about really digging into making sure they understand the types of questions that are on the ACT during that lunch and learn hour. So not necessarily the strategies of how to take the test, but what is that content that you're gonna need to know, and making sure they have that addressed with our students.
Does it make a difference that everyone takes the ACT?
It does.
Because before it was just those who were college bound who
Yes.
wanted to.
I mean,
voluntary.
if I don't plan on using it ever, my want to take it and do well is less, right? But we're hoping to encourage students. I always tell them, right, you might not plan on using the ACT, but you might go into the military where you have to take the ASVAB, or you might go into a tech school and want to take an acuplacer. This is a really great way to practice for that test that is going to matter for you, because they're all similar. It's all about stamina. You're going to have a bunch of the same content that is on it. So use this as a practice for the thing that is going to work for your future.
And just a reminder for the board that it also is freshman and sophomore ACT Aspire, so definitely aligned to that same assessment, but it's no longer just the junior class, because when the state first started issuing school report cards, the high school never got any growth or value added scores because there was a single test that determined their entire report card. They have since added freshman and sophomore ACT Aspire, so they do get the value added and the growth opportunities as well.
I have a question about the absenteeism and losing, I know we lose 5 points off of our score for absenteeism. Is that district score or high school score?
So that was under the old format.
Okay.
Last year was the first year of this format. And so we do get dinged for sure, because when you look at the report card, it has that on track to graduation and that score. So for example, let me look at that's
So they don't take 5 points?
It's not just 5, but it averages into everything. So that not value added, I'm sorry.
Where is it showing?
The beginning, right. Scroll, which way are we? No, other way, sorry. Keep going. Right, stop. So right here it says chronic absenteeism area scores, so that is definitely a piece that brought that score down, because if you look at 8th grade math, it was really close, and if you look at school-wide attendance, it was close, but then you look at that chronic absenteeism, it's really far, and over here we're really, really, really low, and that becomes a 57, and so when you go up a little bit, Jill, you can see the pie right there. So the one down here, that target group, that is 25% of our score, that on track to graduation is 25% of our total score, so we're actually being dinged on it in 2 different areas that both average into that overall score. Attendance is weighed heavily, and so you heard every single building talking about engagement. So we believe, and our teams believe, that when the instruction in the classroom is rigorous and engaging, students will come to school to participate in that and improve that attendance.
So does our attendance drop off, I assume, as they go up in age? Like elementary, is it better at elementary or not?
It is better. A lot of times at the elementary level, it's a lot more on the families to get them there, right? They're not driving themselves to school like a high school student is. And so whether that's the bus or being physically dropped off, we have to lean on the families a little more heavily than just the student.
Attendance at 4th Street is often one of our greatest challenges, and then the high school, because at the kindergarten level, we're still trying to change parents' behavior when they're used to being able to take a 3-day weekend every weekend or, whatever. So 4th Street is about changing family behaviors, and then the high school, and we were just talking about it, this e-hall pass they're very excited about, because there are times when kids are physically in the building in the morning, they're not in class, so then they're marked absent, chronic absenteeism, even though they're physically in the building. So it's a real challenge.
Can I ask a question? So what's like the protocol for kids that just walk around the halls when they're supposed to be in class?
So the first time we really try to get them back to class. So I call myself a professional escort today, and I was told not to say that. I get them to class.
This is a family show.
Then they get lunch detentions, and then so there's consequences that move up per the amount of times that I have to get them to
You
class.
heard them there, and there's detentions and stuff like that.
Yep, and sometimes they get an ISS and they get to hang out in the office for the morning, which they don't like, right? Because they can't meet up with all their people in the hallway, which I think hall pass is going to help with, because a lot of them being in school dropouts, right, is that they are meeting up with people and then walking around. If we can limit the people that they can get into the hallway with, I think we can limit them from feeling like they want to escape into the classroom, along with that engagement, right? Making sure that they can move and they can do things in class that they see valuable and see part of, they see that it's going to help them in their future, right? So if we can really gain that in the classroom, will help increase that attendance.
So question on that, you said limit the people that we're in the hall with. So e-hall pass, like let's say you and I have a history of hanging out in the hall. So you signed out of your English class and I'm supposed to sign out of my math class. It will disallow me, like
correct.
Brad can't go to the hall because Kim is in the hall.
Yep.
This is the future.
It is. I can limit how many people can go to certain locations, right? So if the green hallway bathroom only has 3 stalls, I can say only 3 people can go in there because we only have 3 stalls, so there shouldn't be any more people than that.
So those all pieces are really nice. I find the piece where we get to see how many minutes students are missing from class super valuable, right? Because that's a conversation I can have with parents and say, your kid might be here, but this is how many times they signed out of class today, and this is how much instruction time they missed. So when you're talking about their grades and how our teachers helping them, they can't right now because they're in the hallway or they're not in class. So I find that valuable. We can also limit how many people can be in the hallway altogether, right? And so, and we can limit how many passes. Like right now we have a no pass list, so students who need an escort to go to the bathroom, and we can limit how many times people can do that. So like I would only get 3 bathroom passes a day, right? And so that we can start helping them make better choices about staying in class.
And so this Kids Wandering the Hall has been the bane of Kim's life over the last year and a half. And so when she found this e-hall task, she was super excited. She maybe said 10 words out of her mouth, and the middle school team was during our day-to-day, so each school had a team here. She maybe said 10 words, and the middle school team was like, hey, how much is that? Can we do that? Can we have that e-hall task too? And so they are embarking on this journey together,
So I'm assuming this is also going to help because I know other than being a student shepherd, I'll call you, I know your other part-time job is chasing around vape alarms. So I'm assuming this will make that aspect of your job a little easier.
Yep, and the cameras and the vape detectors help, right? But this will also be like, these were the
Another
people that were
piece,
signed
right.
out to this location. So yes, it'll help with that a lot as well and make it just another piece of information to go along with those investigations.
Interesting.
Any questions for any of the teams?
And one other thing on the ACTs, I am not sure it's getting more valuable. I am part of some conversations in post-secondary, and no one is saying, yes, we should definitely bring back the ACT for every admission, so I don't know how.
But the same could be said for the forward for
Right.
3rd through 8th grade. You know, they're not deeply invested in that either. So I always come back with, but not just Black River Falls kids don't care about the test.
Right.
Kids
Right.
everywhere don't care about the test. And so,
It sounds like you're probably taking the right steps to cure the wanderers.
We're trying.
That's all you can do is try.
I mean, I think as a district, our biggest lead indicator has to be attendance. You know, if we want academic success, you can't teach them if they're not there.
and I will just share with the board as an update, and I don't know if you need them standing there anymore, but when I met with the county truancy group, it really is very, very, very challenging because the city has a simple truancy ticket in their books that they could write, they don't care to. The judge really feels that she doesn't believe that a fine is going to change the family's behavior, and she feels like too many of the students that she sees, there's always a very good story behind it, and we're just really struggling to find some teeth, right? So if the district doesn't have teeth, we pass it to Health and Human Services, and they try and give them many, many, many chances. First, we give them many chances and supports, and and then it goes to Health and Human Services, and then it sometimes never sees the court because it gets to deferred prosecution. There's just really no good system that we have found to hold people accountable for attendance. And so the county is now talking about creating a statute or a opportunity for the county, our school resource officer, to be able to write a simple truancy ticket. So that would not be for habitual, but it could be for skipping class. Like, you cannot leave, you need to stay in school, and the kid just walks out. You could write a simple truancy ticket for that. So the whole county is struggling with how to hold kids and families accountable for attendance. Anything else for the group?
No, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, next we have our school safety drills.
Statute says that you need to be made aware of them, and so you found all of them in there. There was nothing significant about any of them that happened. Just wanted you to see them.
What was it, at Forest Group, what were the new window concerns on that? School safety?
I got one piece of feedback about a staff member was wondering how to break the window if they were in and they needed to get out.
Because they don't just open it.
They don't open at all.
I see.
And so Kent
Fire
had
extinguisher
informed us that they can be broken by hitting
corner of the window. I feel like that should be top secret knowledge, but.
It's not anymore.
Right.
We always struggle when we build the spaces. We always put lots of glass and lots of windows, and then we went into our walkthrough and there's paper over all of them dividing that line of sight. And so it's a choice, I guess, if they decide they want that natural light spilling in, so.
No questions on those? All right, that finishes 7 series, 8 series.
We do need action on that one. 8.1.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were saying 7.4. Okay, yep, 8.1 is monthly expenditures. That was in your packet. We do need action on that.
Make a motion to approve the monthly expenditures.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Facility update.
I'm gonna actually defer to Jill for 2 pieces first and then.
Sure. The one to theater, just to update on that. We've moved along quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. We're still not quite there, but all the electrical was done at the end of September, and that included a lot of the conduit that was in the original scope. But since then, there's been some other needs that have come up, so Bush Electric was back there today and finished up everything they needed to do. So the stage lights are working, the house lights are working. Gopher Stage Lighting still has to come and install some more lights so that they can fix the circuit to those lights, decide which one it is and label it. And so that has to happen yet. They are coming December 1st and 2nd. Justin Doherty is doing a lot of the low voltage wiring, so he'll be doing that when he can. That's tough when he has another full-time job as well, but he wants to do that piece himself and fish those through the conduit because they're more delicate than the other kinds of wires, so he wants to be responsible for that. So that piece is happening too in the next couple of weeks, and then that will enable the dimmer panels to be used. But regardless, it sounds like we're going to be able to have lights for the Christmas concerts coming up. The first one is during the week of the 12th of December, so we should be back on track. Everybody's aware of those deadlines. Kent and Bush Electric and Justin all met last week, just keeping that train moving, so hopefully we'll get there.
And then you were going to talk about forestry vandalism.
I did. Let me pull up. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as far as an update on the process, we know that the city police have turned some things over to the district attorney's office. They have not yet made a decision whether they will be moving forward with prosecution or not, but it has been handed over to the district attorney.
And so when they're going, have they given you any indication?
I asked that just today, and they were uncertain. I've been asked to give a victim statement, and one of them, one case has been actually referred to Monroe County, and so no, unsure on the timing, not getting a lot of answers. But a lot of people have started asking how much it costs, and we don't yet know that in grand total, but Jill was able to pull together some numbers thus far, and we are 100% sure this is not the ultimate bottom line, but this is the piece where we are at right now. So, go for it.
So there's kind of 4 buckets for our insurance policy claims that we have. We have the property, so the actual physical building facility. We have the contents, so any kinds of supplies that were in the building. Extra expense are things that we were forced to spend money on had this not happened. For example, rent somewhere else, or if we were to get portable classrooms, had we gone that route. And then there's a policy called the builder's risk, because we had the construction project going on as well. Things that would fall under that is anything that was new and was damaged. So a window was broken, that was a brand new window. So that would fall under that. Any of the contractor's equipment. If the contractors had to demobilize and come back, there's a cost for them to do that, because everybody had to leave for a couple weeks while we were doing all the other cleaning work. So So up above, that's how we've received some of the payments from the insurance company. So we've received just over $1 million in advance payments from our 2 insurance companies that are, one is the Builder's Risk and Liberty covers the other 3 areas. We have to take out our deductible of about $5,000 on the property side of the things. And then a lot of the items that were considered non-salvageable contents, they had a third party, the insurance company had a third party come in, do an inventory of all of those, and then we can only get actual cash value. We have to take depreciation off all of those things. We get full cost once we submit all our invoices for what we bought, but right away we don't get reimbursed fully until we submit invoices. So that's a work in progress. Our biggest piece so far is Service Master Recovery Management. That was here for 3 weeks. Their bill was just over $1 million for all the cleaning that they did, top to bottom in every room. And then, like I said, national vendor, that's the non-salvageable items, contents that came in. Basically, those items are all thrown away because they weren't able to be cleaned. We're starting to purchase some of those. That's an estimate on how much they allotted for us, so we haven't purchased all those items yet, but they're in process. We had lacrosse movers come in and help us move back into the schools. As you can see, under the extra expense was our rent and our utilities, so $60,000 and $6,700. We bought a couple printers, $420. We also were tracking our staff salaries and benefits for packing up. If they had to be at the school longer because of the busing, they had to help, whatever. So we were tracking those hours as well. The driver salaries and benefits by driving out to the D1 community center, that caused some extra time on their part as well that we wouldn't have had this not happened. Electrostar Electronics Recovery Solutions, they were the ones that came in and did more of the electronics cleaning, so they cleaned the tops of the light troughers, because we had ceiling tiles out, so we had exposed electrical work that they cleaned. They cleaned the PA systems, the speakers. They're also the ones that we ended up ordering breakers through, so they worked with us on getting those breakers. We haven't received a bill yet for those breakers, but they're down below here. I believe they're about $53,000 that we'll owe for breakers yet. This isn't the last of their labor bill. That was an upfront payment to mobilize them and get them here. And so I'm sure we'll see another bill from them. We also track staff mileage for people having to drive a little bit further to work that they normally wouldn't have had to do. We had about $5,200 for smart boards and monitors that had been destroyed, and then some small supplies. So of the known things, that's about $1.2 million so far that we have paid out. Then we're still waiting for these were part of the existing building, the exterior doors that had the full glass in them. We're still waiting on those. Those are about $16,000 to replace. Again, I mentioned the breakers. Those are about $53,000. There's some other miscellaneous items that we've had to order. Don't have a cost on those. Again, still waiting on Electrostar's labor. We need to calculate how many miles our buses traveled additionally as well. That's something I talked to the insurance company about, that they'll be willing to reimburse us for fuel and wear and tear on the buses, basically. And then another big piece that we're waiting on is some adjustments to the Myron and subcontractor reimbursements. So Myron had some time, of course, that they helped us do a lot of these things. They were helping us order windows and get replacement pieces, fix things that were maybe wrecked. So like the broken window, the broken sill, the roof vent, and then their labor. And then also under them are the subcontractors. If they had tools that had to be cleaned or replaced, the mobilization cost, all of that's there, and I don't have that last number for that.
Some of that miscellaneous stuff are things like teachers had fans in their room, or they had their own speakers, or whatever. Some of those items, file cabinets that were dented and that kind of stuff. So some of that other miscellaneous or stuff that the teachers didn't necessarily realize was missing right away until they get back in their space and attempt to start using it, that they recognize it's gone. So
I wonder if some of this should be communicated to the public. There was that letter to the editor a while ago wondering, how much does this cost, why haven't we heard? And then along with that, we should communicate that the DA still doesn't know if they're gonna do any charges. I think maybe we should get ahead of that and have something in the paper.
So we've been concerned about putting a number out there, knowing that it's not final, because people hear a number, then that becomes it, and we were concerned that there's still quite a little variance that could occur there, so that was our concern. It's very safe to say now we know it's above 1.2,
Exactly.
but we're not done, right? I mean, we
Exactly.
could certainly talk in that way, but,
The cost today.
yeah.
I think it wouldn't hurt to put that out. I mean, I know the BJ person will listen to this and do an article, but maybe we need our own section or part in the paper that tells about some of these things that we paid out and how we're waiting to see if the DA is going to charge.
Is that something the board is interested in me reaching out to the Banner Journal and asking them to engage in?
As a district, I don't want to put anything out. I would rather be, and this is what you and I have talked about, I would rather be correct and accurate than fast. I don't want to publish anything as a district, any press release or anything, but if we want to talk to the Banner Journal, this is all a matter of public record, we can use that, but I mean, we're at 1.2, we're pennies shy thereof, and there's another 70,000. I mean, there's easily probably another 200,000 inclusive of that 70,000 there. Without knowing what that labor is, I mean, this could be 1.2 is shooting really, really low. I think at this point, I think we're probably.
It's been a long time since the vandalism happened, and people are wondering.
Right.
And how do you measure the loss of class time that some of those kids had to have too,
And
the
the
disruption
emotional
of
load.
the families?
The
and,
emotion.
you
So
know,
I just wrote that
measure
victim,
that.
the victim statement that I just wrote today. I just talked about how deeply just the challenge for the staff to be ready to start school and then in 2 weeks' time create 2 separate sites with all of the, it was, you can't put a dollar on it, but the staff certainly felt every bit of it.
That's all I got.
I have just another update while we're talking facility, a couple things. One was the open house at the high school. We got lots and lots of positive feedback from the people that participated in that event. The community art mosaic drew in a whole crowd just for that, but so many people that went through and just really, really appreciated the facility and how fantastic it was. There were quite a few retired educators that came later in the week, but they just said, it just is so exciting for us to see the spaces that our colleagues get to work in and for our kids to learn and grow in. So it was very fun. We've done our punch list over at Forest Street, and we've got a couple big items that we're kind of tracking that I want you guys to be aware of. Other than damage, there were some other areas. First of all, our kitchen equipment came in. Some of it was on site during the vandalism, and we were unaware that the freezer panel had a big dent in it, but we weren't aware of that right away because they were all stacked over. So we're still uncovering pieces to that vandalism. But we have used the same equipment provider for the kitchen for all of our work, as do many, many, many districts. And unfortunately, just about every single piece did not work initially. We've had constant calls with them. It was a full month after they moved in, not quite a month. It was several weeks after they moved back into Forest Street before they could start preparing food there. So lots of challenges with that kitchen equipment startup and some of the design challenges. Some silly things like where they dump their trays at the end, trying to figure out all of that beforehand. So some challenges that we're still working through there. 2 other items that are much larger is some masonry work that was done. When we did the walkthrough, it was very, very obvious that there was some poor quality work that was done. Myron was aware of it, but once the wall is built, it's very difficult to address it, and so they talked to the subcontractor that was doing it, and the subcontractor made the decision to try to do some grinding on that brick when it was put in tilted, they tried to grind the brick. I think that just put a great big spotlight on those areas, and so now when you look at that massive wall that goes from floor to
probably 3 stories almost, it's so tall, you can very easily see some just poor quality. And so that company, in talking to Myron, has had 2 things. They wanted to have the opportunity to come back and try to do some repair work, and they wanted to offer us a partial credit. And our advice from, because remember we have that 3-legged stool of construction management, we have Bray Architect and Myron Construction and the district. We are not accepting their I can't think of the word now, I just lost it. We're not going to accept the amount of money that they are offering right now, and we're really uncertain about allowing them to come back and fix it, because once it is painted, it just really calls more attention to it. Something that I think is even more obvious than that wall, I don't know how or why, the corners that should be bullnose, they should be rounded. They didn't use bullnose block, they used pointy block, and then they tried to grind it to make it rounded, and it looks really, really poor. So we are gonna work with our partners and that company and figure out what can be done to make it better and how to address that. On the great big wall, Bray Architect is looking at what other materials could they just put over that, because that's the part that has the cool graphic of the trees and stuff. And they believe that maybe we could do something 3D in front of that block that would maintain that same pattern, but it would cover the poor workmanship. And so we did not sign the change order with the refund that they offered. We are going to wait and see what happens. We have an appointment the first week in December to meet with them over at 4th Street about what our solution is going to be. The other is the rubber flooring. So I have a little PTSD when it comes to flooring because we were very confident in the LVT that we put into the high school, and it is in rough shape. And so from the very onset of this project, we said we don't want LVT, we want something far sturdier. We do not want to 6 years down the road regret our choice. And they heard us, everybody recognized it, and they said this rubber flooring is the product. It is the most top of the line for the price that schools can typically afford. And at the time we were asking them to put in all that rubber flooring, it was hurry up, we're waiting to get kids in, hurry up, we're waiting to get kids in, we are 3 weeks late. And so there was a lot of this time pressure. The install is not acceptable. When we did our walkthrough, you can see very clearly when they would cut to meld one color up to the other color, you can see crooked cuts, and there's no welding of that together. It just is a gap. And along the concrete block flooring, it already, for the short time that they've been in there, it's starting to collect dirt at the beginning of each one of the tiles because they're pulling up a little bit, and it just looks like it is a well-worn area, and it is brand new and significantly expensive. And so Bray and Myron were there when we did the walkthrough, and I just couldn't stop looking at the floor. And so we've talked a lot about that, and we're going to work with them to figure out what our solution will be. Right now there's talk that perhaps it needs to be a complete tear out and reinstall. The areas where it's the same color and it's not the trimming around, some of those look fantastic, like the big hallway spaces, they look great, but around doorways, and it's just all lifting up, and that is positively unacceptable for the price that we paid. So that on top of the cleaning of it in 2 of the classrooms that we went in, one of them looks like it has been there for I don't know how long with all these scuff marks, and everybody was very troubled when we pointed that out, and they have since said that the scrubbers that Kent uses in his crew, there's one with like some diamond dust in it that is supposed to, it buffs it off in a heartbeat is what we've been told, but the manufacturer of that flooring is scheduling an appointment in early December to come and meet with the 2 of us and Kent and his crew to talk about what maintenance looks like, and if there is a need for gliders on the bottom of chairs and desks, we're going to talk about that, but then we're also going to talk about who's paying for those gliders, because that certainly wasn't part of the conversation. So it's unfortunate that we're moving past the vandalism side of it. This is regular construction stuff that definitely we were very pressuring on timing, but the install is just really subpar. So wanted you to know, if you walk in that building, we also are not satisfied with it and are continuing to work with our partners on addressing that. That's just a plan. It certainly is. I was having palpitations over that flooring, my goodness. That's all we have for facilities.
Right. Generally good news, but not all.
And so the great news is we have two partners, the three-legged stool, and everybody is committed to making sure we are satisfied in the end, right? That's the big picture. It's going to take us longer to get there, but everyone is committed to making sure we're satisfied with the final product in the end.
All right, 8.3, we have the policy subcommittee met, and those are all forwarded for first reading. I did want to provide one comment from one of our committee members. I think it's on Rule 761. I'm just gonna try and pull up that rule number. The concern was that students who have a negative balance exceeding a certain amount, I can't remember the details, but anyways, her concern was that there does reach a time within the rule where we're not allowing students the full meal, they're getting the garden bar only. So I just wanted to.
Secondary students.
Elementary,
I'm
sorry, yes.
full meal, but secondary.
Secondary students are not basically not receiving a protein, but are receiving the garden bar. So I said I would pass that comment along to the full board. Is there anything that we want to pull out for discussion? Otherwise, this is first reading only. We'll take action at our next meeting. All right, seeing nothing, we will move on. Reports, 9.1 meeting minutes. Again, we're looking for approval on this.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as were presented in our packet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Severson's report once again.
My only report is I just wanted to highlight a few of the activities from American Education Week. Specifically was that Wednesday morning breakfast with the retired staff. It was fantastic. Honestly, we haven't been able to do it the last couple of years, or we chose not to do it the last couple of years. We had about 36 retired staff members, and it was just fun to hear them together. And the whole admin team is there to greet and answer questions, and we toured the facility. And honest to goodness, they are retired educators, and sometimes they're like children. They got lost on the tour because they wanted to stop and talk to somebody, and then breakfast was being served, and we had to send out a search party, and they were just really thoroughly enjoying being back together. But it was
A huge, wonderful breakfast.
It was. Our nutrition services staff do fantastic, as you note in your happy boxes every time you come to meetings. So yes. I was going to say that, but then that was McDonald's, so just happy boxes, right? Maybe your meal makes you happy. So just wanted to highlight that because it was just really, really, really fun. It was made for a hectic week with all of those extra pieces, but some of it was just really, really fun. And that's all that I have.
WASB?
There's Mary Jo, myself, and Brad, and Dr. Severson attended the regional meeting in Alaska. You guys want to add anything? We did the effective meeting training as well.
I did learn things there.
Our region had one of the biggest turnouts, which kind of surprised me because I thought it was kind of small, but we had the largest number of administrators attending with their board members. And I thought that was really good for Region 6 to have that collaboration there. I attended the National Forum to Advance Rural Education October 20th and 21st in Green Bay. It was the first national conference ever held in Wisconsin. All 50 states and Canada were represented at this conference. It was awesome. And one point that really stood out to me was that 85% of our communities in the United States are under 5,000. And so rural education is really has some specifics to address, and I have the whole content here, and I'll give my report to Marty to file in the packet. There was a strong presence of Native American and First Nation studies, including an open tribal ceremony like we experience normally, but So many people had never experienced that. And I was so proud of Black River Falls, because when I would even be at a table and say I was from Black River Falls, they knew Black River Falls in our Native American studies. Everyone in the nation knows Paul Rickett. And they go, "You're so lucky," you know. And I was just, you heard so much about it tonight, about all of the things we do. And it really made me feel we're in the right direction. We know we have a lot of work to do, but Wisconsin is considered a leader in general education among all of the states as well. And with the ripple effect of the experiences that all the school leaders had at this national conference was awesome. But it made me so proud to be from Black River Falls. And I think sometimes we take it for granted and we look at ourselves and say we have so much work to do, and of course we all want that, but districts just hadn't experienced what we have right here in Wisconsin. And I have the full program of everything that I went to. I attended all day, and the evening sessions as well. They were awesome. So I will leave that with Marty if anyone's interested in further, so I can answer any questions too. I was sitting with a table on one session, people from Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. And that was when they said, "You're from Black River Falls?" And it was just like, how do you know? And they knew our First Nation studies at Green Bay and Paul Rickett, and I just like made me feel really proud. CISA reports, we, as you know, Paul Fisher has taken over as the administrator there, and I know he's reaching out to more school district administrators, including his administrative report to all the superintendents, and so I think there's a lot more communication among all the districts. So I'm happy about that. That's what I have to report. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
That's good. Thank you for going to.
We got the convention coming up, and that's going to be good.
Yep. All right. Yeah. Next conference is January 17th through the 20th. Because I just looked, I have a conflict with that. So. Any other conferences or workshops? School board connection. It's been last week was a busy week. I know Tom and I saw each other 3 times, right? At least 2, if not 3. So I was able to stop by Forest Street, and again, our food service made delicious muffins. Although I think it's a cupcake at that level of chocolate, I'm pretty sure. And then the middle school, they had the, I don't know the term, involvement fair or whatever they were calling it.
Middle school clubs.
Clubs, yeah. Which was very interesting, and I, of course, love that stuff. The Vex Robotics team was there, and they let me drive. It's a lot harder than it looks. It's not just a remote control. It's quite technical. But the students were very excited about all of their different displays and answered a lot of great questions, and it was a great event. And then I don't know what normal. This is my first Empty Bowls. We've not been able to make it, but that was I don't know what average turnout looks like, but it was.
I'd say it was above average.
Above average. It was significant, that's for sure. So it was a lot of fun. It was a busy Monday.
Great. I was able to go to the middle school also, and the kids were very well prepared. They answered questions. I was very impressed with their knowledge and how they presented their clubs. That was great, and I would agree with the Golden Bowls was great also. Very nice.
I was on grandma duty in another state, so I missed National Education Week, sorry.
What else? All right. Future agenda items. So one thing I noted, I would like to hear from, and I'm going to mispronounce it, Wasik, is that?
Wanchik-Washek.
Wanchik-Washek. See, I said I would mispronounce it. I would be interested in hearing from both them and Student Senate on a I don't know what, semi-regular basis?
So part of our
that's
core agenda is student senate, and after last month when we had our student senate, I saw Eli at the high school and I said, hey, what do you think about? And he's like, I love it. So I believe we are going to alternate. So when student senate happens, then Waukesha would be the month after that.
Perfect. Yeah, I just think that's another interesting way for the board to kind of keep their finger on the pulse of the school. Our next meeting is December 19th, which I believe is already pretty full. Is that?
I would have to look at our core agenda, I'm sorry. Usually December is somewhat late because there's almost always a holiday program also happening, and there happens to be Monday Night Football if anybody cares. The Packers are playing that night, but.
So maybe we intentionally try and keep it light then. January 2nd is our special meeting for January. And I'm thinking that we are going to, that's gonna be our data dive in the report cards. Anything else anyone wants to cover? I mean, that's gonna be a full.
Well, then we'll table, we're gonna discuss.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that-
That'll
Yep.
capture.
Yeah, on December 19th, right? And then a regular meeting is January 16th. So anything anyone else wants to cover? All right, I'm sure there'll be plenty by then. All right. That is the entirety of the 10th series. So we are up to adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Nick's ready to go to sleep.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.